Hey guys, welcome back to the Storm channel, and I hope that you're doing great today and that today has been a pretty good day for you. So yeah, if you followed some of the videos that I've done previously on this channel, I've indicated that I've become a massive Resident Evil fan since last October, I'd say, and is one of the best one of the best games in the Resident Evil franchise, and one of the best games that I've ever played is the 2005 classic that can be played on literally anything, Resident Evil 4. Since it is known that there will be a remake of this classic game, I just want to make a video discussing what I would like to see from a Resident Evil 4 remake. On another note, I haven't finished Resident Evil 4 yet, and I'm kind of like at the end point, I'd say. So when it is finished, do expect a Storm experience on it, but yeah, let's just get right into this video. So first off, the combat system should be a combination of Resident Evil 2 remakes and from like Resident Evil Village. By this I mean a third-person shooter that is a bit faster paced with cool mechanics, like, I don't know, like something like when Leon using Ethan's pushback shove move from Village, which could be used for Leon to stun a Ganado or something like that. And from what we know about the development of Resident Evil 4 Remake, we know that they've had team shuffles and taken Resident Evil 3's remake's criticism to heart, meaning that they want to try and stick as closely as they can to the original as possible, but I'm going to be talking about more on that later. But yeah, now that I think of it, that's all the new mechanics from Village, literally. But I really want to see Leon's martial arts moves, but maybe in a more realistic sense. Like, in Resident Evil 4, the camera kind of cuts back when Leon does one of those moves, which kind of disconnects the combat a bit. So in a remake, maybe make Leon vulnerable during the wind-up of the attacks, so that it can have like a high-risk, high-reward type of situation. For instance, when Leon is to do a roundhouse kick, getting ready to perform the action, a thrown axe by Ganado can stun him and kick him out of that situation. This could just make the gameplay loop a bit more fun, I feel, whilst also being more realistic in a sense. I think this is a bit of a hot take, but yeah, that's my take, and moving on. Apparently from a leak I read somewhere, the game will be semi-open world, which I can kind of see happening, like how they did in Resident Evil Village, and would be cool if it happens. I've heard the bad of Resident Evil 3 remakes, and from what I've heard, from what I've seen, I feel it's a missed opportunity that with the open world, like, they could have made it, and you could just imagine how cool it would have been just to like stroll through the entire Raccoon City and finding extra secrets and stuff. I mean, Resident Evil is very linear in a sense, it always has been. So, I mean, but Resident Evil Village has proven that an open world Metroidvania-like progression could work, like how every time you beat like a certain story segment, you return to the village and then go out again. I mean, based on Resident Evil 4's story, this could be a bit more difficult since the village is like primarily like the beginning of the game, and I don't know how they do it with the castle or the island as they move on, but I mean, the village, they could make it work with the opening village. Just so like in Resident Evil 4, like imagine you could enter the village, right? And there are houses that are locked off by, I don't know, a bridge, for example. And once you beat the big fish that you can shoot 5 times in the water to get a cool secret, you receive the crank to that certain bridge. Either then you could continue down the path to fight El Gigante, or return to the bridge, that bridge that you saw, and find something cool, like a new area or a new weapon or something like that. I'm not a game designer, so I don't know how they could implement this, but I know that in theory it can work. Now let's talk about the stuff that I don't want to see. And I don't want to see cut content. I have Resident Evil 3 Remake in the backlog unplayed, and we'll get to that someday, but I've heard that the primary criticism is with Resident Evil 3 remakes is its length, which is due to result of cut content, like the clock tower from what I've heard. Resident Evil 4 needs absolutely all of its core places, the village, castle, island, all of them, and everything in them. As like all those small areas, that there are fun small segments in every single area. Like the courtyard with the dogs and the castle, if they remove that, I'll be devastated, man. Like, that section was fun and scary, and probably the scariest part in the game. Like, I for real got jump scared because the dog jumped out of a bush at me when I literally turned the corner. For all it's worth, they could flesh out these places and make them even more fleshed out. Like, for instance, that same courtyard section, they could just like make it an even bigger like courtyard labyrinth maze, make it like more darker and stuff, like just add more elements to it to make it even more scary. But yeah, I know it's a lot of work, but some areas in RE4 just at times felt a bit non-lived in, but honestly it's not such a big deal because they've just created a really good atmosphere throughout. So yeah, no cut content, and flesh out some more content and add some more content if needed. Right, okay, now we're getting to a hot section, an actual hot take. For Ashley, I want to hear me out on this one, to not change anything about how we guide her. I think they made a great escorting system. Yeah, she's annoying at times when she...
Where are you going, Leon?
But other than that, it's great. She ducks to avoid your bullets, she can stand still away from people, and you can even dump her in a dumpster if you don't want to deal with her. I mean, it's not many games where you have to escort a person where you can like just throw them in a dumpster and just call them back. I mean, you can instantly whistle her back once you clear out a room, and you're like, okay, you press the button, she comes back to you, and that's a really good function. So that like, either you can bring up the challenge by bringing her with you to make it like more easier to progress instead of having to wait for her to come to you, or simply just get rid of her and then call her back. That's unless they take a completely new direction in terms of Ashley and how long until we actually find Ashley. I want to see the same Ashley system. Right, okay, this might be the final point for this video, but I want to see a bit more emphasis on actual survival horror. I mentioned the courtyard dog encounter, and I felt that was the most survival horror part in the game up until what I've played. So how do we create this feeling? Well, for instance, we could have a more active cycle of day, like Leon arriving at what, 5 PM, and then the sun sets at 6 PM because of European daylight savings. And so that's when the village attack begins, when like it turns to like when it's dusk and so on. Yeah, instead of RE Village, which starts in the middle of the night, technically dawn, and being mostly during the day, I want to see Resident Evil 4 take place in its nocturne setting. Also, keeping the action, we could add Ganados in unforgiving places so that we can be taken off guard. Like maybe walking into a house, you'll see a Ganado cooking some dinner, and they turn around for a knife at you, like just what chopping some chicken, throws a knife at you. That would be, I mean, that would be pretty like, that would like just make it like more realistic, and like, you know, like you'd actually feel like scared, like, oh no, what's the Ganado going to do? Oh, and speaking of the Ganados, we can make them scarier than Lycans. Because the Ganados are more humans than Lycans, their movements can be more thought out. And I want to see them work together, not like how sometimes archers would shoot you at the same time, but like them actually coordinating attacks to surround you and stuff. Like, imagine the village intro sequence, right? The chainsaw man tells 2 Ganados to flank you whilst he charges down the middle. That would be a cool touch and would make the game, well, it would add challenge and create more like survival horror, like, and you'd have to think, like, that's what the whole point of Resident Evil is. Oh, one final point. They need to do this. They need to keep the cheesy dialogue and the Spanish dialogue. They're both amazing, and I really hope they keep Nick Apostolidis for this game, because his portrayal of Leon is really, really good, and can't wait to see his take on Resident Evil 4 Leon. As for the story, I hope they keep the main plot points the same, but maybe a bit like RE2, a reimagining in a sense. I mean, I'm all for it if they can pull it off well, because Resident Evil 2 Remake was really, really good. But yeah, I feel like this was a long video, and I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about a game that isn't even officially announced yet. But what would you like to see in Resident Evil 4 Remake? Comment that down below. Also, leaving a like helps out a ton, and subscribing would mean a lot. But yeah, here's hoping for that they actually announce the game and that it actually turns out good. And yeah, with that, I have to play some more Resident Evil, and I'll see you in the next one. Nos vemos, and Storm out.